Hi everyone, my name's Brian, and I'm one of the peer tutors here at National Louis, and I'm going to be going through our Integrating Sources workshop. The goals of this workshop are to learn different techniques on how to include sources in your academic writing, identify some common mistakes when integrating those sources and how to avoid them, and in our actual workshops, we try to practice integrating those sources through examples, but we're going to provide you with some examples in this video. These are going to be the main three ways that you would integrate a source in your papers. It's either through quoting, summarizing, or paraphrasing. We're going to go into detail about each. The main thread through all of them, though, and the important thing to take from this slide is that all of them do need in-text citations. Why these techniques matter. So using good sources in your writing helps build credibility and authority. Um, Another important side note is that it's important to find good sources. And so I'll see papers that use blogs that have great information and have in-text citations too of peer-reviewed sources. I would advise to take that extra step and just use the sources that that blogger is using. Go to those peer-reviewed articles and cite them directly. Um, by using other people's material, you're able to support your arguments and claims and strengthen your point. Um, Another thing I see a lot of in papers is the use of personal opinions and pronouns. And so you want to avoid directly saying that unless that's the assignment. There are other ways to word your sentences that imply what your opinion might be, but you're using external sources to prove your point or drive home your point rather than show that, well, this is just how I feel. The other important thing is to avoid plagiarism and the consequences of plagiarizing. So the first thing we're going to go over is quoting. Quotations are identical to the original source. They use a narrow segment of the source, and again, they match word for word. Um, I see a lot of overuse of quotes, and so I would try to avoid using it unless the specific wording from the author stands out to really drive home a point for you. Um, for putting a quote and formatting in an APA style, there's an example here. So in quotes, for quotations fewer than 40 words, add quotation marks around the words, close quotation mark, and then there's the in-text citation next to it. Um, yeah, only use quotations when, again, the specific wording is what's most important. For quotes that are longer than 40 words, there's a specific way to format them. You'll run into this very rarely, but just in case you do, here's a little slide on it. Um, so the format includes starting the quote on a new line, double spaced away. It will have the entire quote indented. So there's no new paragraph start. You're not indenting that first line any farther than the half margin in from the rest of your text. It does include the in-text citation. And then after the quote is finished, you hit enter again, and the paragraph continues as normal with no new indentation, assuming that that's not the end of your paragraph. It shouldn't be the end of your paragraph because there should be some amount of information following up that long of a quote, explaining the importance of that quote. The next thing is paraphrasing. This is the thing that's probably most commonly done to integrate a source. And so paraphrasing involves putting a passage from source material into your own words. Paraphrase must also be attributed to the original source, same as quoting. Um, Paraphrase material is usually shorter than the original passage, taking a somewhat broader segment of the source and condensing it. Um, the reason that this is more powerful than maybe using a direct quote from a source is that it shows, by you putting it into your own words, it shows that you understand the material and what the author is saying. Um, you also want to avoid close paraphrasing. And so that would essentially be nearly direct quoting, but then changing a few words to make it look like it's your own. Um, at that point, it'd be better to just put the quote. Um, Instead, you want to make sure that your paraphrase encompasses the more general concepts and themes rather than just trying to change a few of those keywords. Um, yeah, and then you should follow up any either quote or paraphrase information or summarize for that matter with uh, your own voice, a couple lines explaining the importance of the information that you introduced from an external source. So here's just a quick example. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see the original text, all of the red and green in they call it patch writing. We called it close paraphrasing. Um, and it is functionally plagiarism. You can see they technically changed some words, but they also used some of the direct language, while the example below that says proper paraphrase takes the main goal or the main themes of the original text of the immigration and the economy and discuss it kind of in their own words. And then finally, we have summarizing. Similar to paraphrasing, it involves putting the main idea or ideas into your own words again, but this time it's only including the main points. Um, this again gets an in-text citation. There's summaries, the way they're different than paraphrasing is they are significantly shorter than the original. They're taking the kind of bird's eye view of an article or a section of an article rather than some of the more nitty-gritty detail that you might use with paraphrasing. Um, so again, when using summaries, the goal is to cover the broad points of an author rather than restate their ideas with the same level of detail and just driving it home again, focusing on the main idea. And so this would be something that you maybe introduce early in a paragraph, explain that that's kind of the broad scope of your paper, and then you can get into paraphrasing later on in the paragraph. And so it's important to combine uh, all three of these in your papers to make them the strongest. It again by mixing, it shows understanding of the concepts. It shows why the quote that you pulled is more important than some of and that you like that specific wording and for what reason. The paraphrasing shows that you understand the concepts on your own and can re-explain them, while the summary again shows that on a broader scale. It's important to maintain flow throughout your paper. You should treat your essay writing as if you were writing a story. Make sure there is an overarching narrative and logical organization. So generally that looks like an introductory paragraph that either begins or ends with a thesis statement. Your thesis statement is going to discuss the main themes of your following body paragraphs in order. And then within that, each of your body paragraphs is going to start with an introductory sentence of that theme based on your thesis, and you're going to go into more detail. This structure also helps just have the paper kind of write itself because you're just filling in the gaps that you created. Um, and it's also important to balance your own voice with the sourced information. I see a lot of papers where they either begin a paragraph or end a paragraph with a quote or a paraphrased piece of information, but that writer doesn't go into detail as to why that information matters. As a reader, you're just kind of left hanging with it. And so it's important to end your paragraphs with why any information you present is important. Okay, so it's important to use correct APA format. There's a lot of small details that we're not going to get into in this workshop, but we do have a video here, and these slides will be posted with an APA workshop that goes into some of the detail. There's also some guides online and through National Lewis that can help with APA formatting. Um, and then it's important again to maintain a clear flow and structure. Uh, that, as we've kind of touched on a few times already, one sentence of a source material and then one or more sentences of the writer's voice explaining the importance of that source material. And then using transitions, either in the form of a sentence or specific words, uh, to go from topic to topic to help with that flow throughout the paper. And that'll help keep the reader engaged. And so we started to touch on this, but let's get into the specifics of what a paragraph might look like. Um, should start with a topic sentence, or as we said for the introductory paragraph, a thesis statement can either go at the beginning of the paragraph or at the very end. It introduces the theme of the body paragraph, and the paragraph structure matches the overall essay structure, which is to say, Your introductory paragraph is going to introduce the themes that are going to be found throughout, and then your body paragraphs are going to fill in. Same way with a body paragraph, though, on a more micro level, your introductory sentence is going to introduce what the theme of that entire paragraph is going to be, or that section, using either section headers or topic sentences. And then you're going to fill that information in below it. You're then going to make a claim, so a mini argument related to proving your thesis statement. So, for example, this paper aims to convince the reader that rent in Chicago is too high by, and then this theme, this theme, this theme. So your first main paragraph is going to have that first theme. Um, the wages for jobs have not gone up relative to the amount of rent. And then you're going to go into specific data after that, showing that and explaining why that makes it unfair that rent is so high. Um, Another key term is a signal phrase, which is highlighted in yellow, which is normally paired with an action verb, which is then highlighted in blue. So Kurt Vonnegut stated, those who believe in telekinetics, raise my hand. Um, and you want to mix up the language you use um, and the action verbs you use throughout. And we have a source here that can take you through some of the examples because you don't want to be repetitive with the language that you use. Moving on from there, source material and citation. So again, use a mix of source material presentation, which is quotes, paraphrasing, or summarization. So now you're following up your claim with information that shows why that claim should be supported. You're supporting your claim. Um, and then make sure that you include that proper APA citation for any information you get from an external source. And then this is the part I see missed a lot, which is analysis. So explain how that information presented supports the paper's claim. Johnson's argument illustrates, this quotation shows, etc. And then you have a concluding sentence, which again is just kind of mirroring your introductory sentence while transitioning onto the next topic. Um, so avoiding plagiarism. What is plagiarism? It is presenting work or ideas from another source as your own, with or without consent of the original author, by incorporating into your work without full acknowledgement. All published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, printed, or electronic form, is covered under this definition, as is the use of material generated wholly or in part through use of artificial intelligence. That's an updated definition to include AI now. We have another guide here on specifically AI related plagiarism and how to use it. Different instructors are going to have different rules on it. Some instructors may even encourage the use of it, um, but make sure that you're using it correctly and within those guidelines. Um, let's see, citing sources properly. Again, we have the APA guides up on our site, as well as plenty on like APA style. The people who made the guidebook also have online examples and guides that are great. Each in-text cited source should also have a matching reference at the end of the paper. I will sometimes see a reference that doesn't have an in-text citation or an in-text citation that doesn't have a reference. If you have one, you need the other. And so if you find a source but you don't cite any of the information in the text, don't put it in your references or find something in that source that you'll actually put in your paper. These are some of the LibGuide guides that we have. Again, these slides will be posted, and so you can kind of go through them. I'll click on one or two. Um, they all are kind of formatted like this, but great content in here that goes into more detail than what I'm going into. Um, and then yeah, this is for citation generation. So Scriber, Purdue OWL has one, and then there's a Google Doc one. Um, Also, just going to pitch Grammarly again. That helps catch if it will notice if you're writing in APA style, and it will help you with APA citations and things like that too if it sees it being done incorrectly. Also catches some like grammar and clarity errors that are a pain to proofread yourself, like use of commas, capitalization, spelling. So I highly recommend using Grammarly for all of your writing. And yeah, thank you very much. Here's the references from the workshop. Yeah, if you have other questions, feel free to join us in our next integrating sources workshop. We'd be happy to answer.